Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Saturday. I am super excited about today's episode and always happy to be here even early on a Saturday morning for you guys. So for those of you guys who do not know me, I am Dr. Bryce. I'm out of the Wellness Way, Green Bay, right here in Wisconsin, and it's actually, not too chilly this morning, so that's always a plus. But today we have a lot of things to go through. So today's episode was actually inspired by you guys. Okay, so you guys are always asking Dr. Patrick different types of questions, and a lot of questions that we've been getting today is whether it's through social media or email, different things like that, is actually about the tongue. Okay, so a lot of people do have certain concerns. Maybe you have some swelling, some burning, maybe there's some discolorations or abnormalities there that are concerning to you. Right? And they can be, signs and symptoms of some underlying issues. And that's really what inspired today's episode. So we are going to be talking about the secrets that your tongue keeps. Okay? Because a lot of, research and stuff has actually been done when it comes to the tongue. And there are certain things that we can actually see on the tongue that can tell us some stuff about what's going on deeper inside the body. So before we get into that, let's go ahead. You guys know that we are always giving things away. And as always, we do have our giveaways panel here. So why don't we hop over to them to introduce what you guys could win today.
Hey,
well, do you want to take that one?
No. Good morning. How's that? We'll start there.
Yeah. Good morning indeed, everybody. It's great to see people already in the chats going at it, having great conversations. Today we're going to be doing kava because as we approach the end of summer, I'm pretty sure parents are starting to get a little stressed with the oncoming school season. Erin, do we have any other special announcements?
We've got a lot, actually.
I'll let you have that one.
All right. Fabulous. So I don't know if everybody's checked out the new newsletter. It got a total refresh and went out yesterday.
Yeah.
Brand new, brand spanking new. So super excited. Can't wait to hear what Doc thinks about that one. So our team took it over and went a little creative. And I think that it's going to be a lot of fun for y'all to read and some fresh way to look at the information. Also, our usual Academy. We have our Academy winner for today. But before I tell you who that lucky person is, I just want to share, if you're interested in any information about the Academy, be sure to email academy@thewellnessway.com. Let us know. Give us 1 to 2 sentences, maybe a paragraph, whatever you feel about why an Academy tuition award would help you and your future goals, your aspirations. We'd love to hear from you. But today I'd like to announce, I'm so excited, we've got a new member of our Academy family, Jennifer Dalho. So Jennifer Dalho, welcome to the Wellness Way Academy, and we're excited to see what you do in the future.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, you guys. So as always, if you guys do want to have some kava at the end of the day today, make sure that you guys are just interacting with them. So Dr. Lucas and Aaron over there are here to chat with you guys. Dr. Lucas can help answer other questions, and you guys see them. We have more doctors. We have more staff in the back in Dr. Patrick's office here, even though Dr. Patrick's not here. He does let us use his office. He's got some comfy chairs and stuff in there for us. So that's always good. So they are watching the show back there, and they are still in the chat as well. Okay, so make sure that you guys are talking to them, whether you're on ADP or Facebook, okay? So today, when we are going to be talking about the tongue, the first thing that we need to do is just establish a baseline of normalcy. Okay, so I want to just teach you guys just briefly some of the normal anatomy and physiology when it comes to the tongue, because it does serve some very important purposes, including me just talking to you right now. Okay, so when we pull this up, we can start seeing some of the normal things on the tongue. Okay, so you can see all these different things on this picture called papillae. Okay, and papillae are basically these little hair-like projections, and that's actually where the majority of your taste buds are. Okay, so you guys, next time you go eat some of your favorite foods, you can thank your papilla. Okay, don't actually do that because people will think that you're very weird, or just say it inside your head. Okay, but when we start talking about the tongue, it is a major sensory organ for taste. Okay, but also your tongue itself is really a muscle. And it is designed to move around and actually helps kind of churn your food. So your teeth are there to help break your food up. You have different glands producing different enzymes. So you actually start digesting a lot of your food in your mouth. Okay, if you've ever, had like a little cracker or something, and if all you do is set it in your mouth, it will start dissolving. Okay, you have different digestive enzymes that are playing a role right in your mouth. Okay, so it does aid in digestion. That's why it's very important to chew your food to break it up, but you also get some of those enzymatic processes happening even in your mouth. Okay, and then of course it aids in speech, right? So we are all very thankful that we are able to speak. Okay, so those are just some of the normal things when it comes to the tongue. Okay, but now we have to talk about, well, what can be abnormal, okay? Because most people don't send us a message and say, hey, my tongue is normal, right? They say, hey, I have these problems. What does this mean? Should I be concerned? Okay, so here are some of the top things that we hear from people, okay, from you guys. Okay, and even just looking it up, these are the most common issues when it does come to the tongue. Okay, so you have what's called geographic tongue. Okay, and I'll kind of explain what that is. The name of that one, kind of interesting. Then we have oral thrush, which is going to be a yeast overgrowth in your mouth. Okay, and that can happen all throughout the body. And those are going to be the major two that we talk about today. But then I'll also talk a little bit about fissured tongue, which is where people will typically call it hamburger tongue. And once I show you guys the picture of that, you will kind of understand where the name comes from. Probably won't want to do a grill out today, but that's okay. All right, but also people have burning tongue, okay, where your tongue will literally burn, your mouth will burn. You get that sour taste in your mouth. There's some other things like leukoplakia, you can have cancer, glossitis. We're not going to talk super in detail really at all about those ones. We're going to focus on the most common ones, okay? So first one being geographic tongue, okay? So you guys can see the picture there on the right, and I want you guys to pay note. You guys probably can see it right away. In more of the left side of that picture, normally there would be these tiny little bumps, right? You would call them your taste buds, okay? And those are pretty much gone, okay? So it's very smooth. You can see it goes from pink, and then around that it's gonna be red, and then you have some slightly raised borders around there, okay? So what happens with geographic tongue is you actually lose those papillae, or those little hair-like structures. And the reason it got its name, which I don't know if I fully agree with this, but they say it looks like a map. Okay, so I mean, I've looked at a map before. It looks a little different to me, but that's okay, right? So that is what it looks like though, okay? And you can get certain burning sensations there. It's very common on the sides of your mouth, and it only really affects a small percentage of the population, about 2 to 3%. But that being said, that's only if you're reporting it. That's only if people are actually looking for it. I actually think probably a lot more people have some of these abnormalities, but they kind of just go unnoticed. Okay, but what causes it? That's always going to be the biggest question, and we get asked that all the time, like, what can I actually do about this, okay? So we have to start looking other places. We have to figure out why this is happening. And I wanna show you guys, I think I have this next slide here, it's actually really funny. Medical literature and stuff can be very, very confusing. You guys know that. It can be very misleading, and I thought, hey, we're talking about the tongue, it's probably gonna be really straightforward. Look at the first sentence of this little article, okay? So, geographic tongue is an inflammatory but harmless condition. That seems a little confusing, okay? It's an inflammatory condition, but it's harmless. You don't have to worry about it. Does that make sense? Not really, right? How can something be inflammatory but harmless? I think what they're trying to say is that it's not going to cause a major disease, okay? So they're not going to do anything about it. But we all know that chronic inflammation is damaging. It's going to damage those cells. You can visibly see it is damaging the cells of the tongue. It's damaging the tissue. That's not good. That's not normal, okay? So although it may not be a full-on disease or a diagnosis you have to get, it's still problematic and it's not supposed to be there. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep reading this then because it does explain really well what this is, okay? So we'll just ignore that first little sentence, but the tongue usually is covered with these tiny pinkish white bumps called the papillae, which is what we talked about, and majority of those are taste buds, not all of them are. Okay, but these papillae are fine hair-like structures. With geographic tongue, patches on the surface of your tongue are missing, right? So cellular damage, it's inflammatory. Okay, these patches are smooth and red and often with slightly raised borders. So picture perfect as to what I just showed you guys. It's very smooth, it's a little bit red on the outside, and it does have those slightly raised borders. So the condition is called geographic tongue because it makes it look like a map. Okay, although geographic tongue may look alarming, it does not cause health issues. Okay, and what do they mean by that? Well, they tell you it's not related to infection or cancer. So two things gone, right? And I actually will disagree with them on the first one, and I'll show you guys why. Okay, so geographic tongue, it's a tongue twister right there. Geographic tongue sometimes can cause tongue pain, so that's where people get a lot of that burning sensation or sour taste, and make you more sensitive to certain foods such as spices, salt, and even sweets. Okay, so what actually causes this, right? Because just like anything, right, I will always talk to people. I like to use an ankle, I like to use high blood pressure as analogies, okay? If you have high blood pressure, you don't just wake up one day and your blood pressure just decides to go up. There has to be something that causes that, okay? If I stub my toe, my blood pressure needs to go up for my survival, and it will. So if I stub my toe and measure my blood pressure, it goes up, okay? Same thing is true with any condition, okay? There has to be something that is triggering that, okay? So you don't just wake up one day and you have abnormalities on your tongue. Something has to be causing it. So what could those be, okay? So from my research, this is what I have found to be the causes of geographic tongue, okay? And it was almost hinted at in the medical literature, but allergies, hormonal changes, diabetes, stress, and one of the things too, with like diabetes, especially type 2, when you have insulin resistance, that's gonna cause hormonal changes. Stress is gonna alter your digestion, can predispose you to allergies, is gonna cause hormonal changes. Okay, but look at this last one. And this is something that came up over and over and over, not only with geographic tongue, but also the fissured or Hamburger tongue. They are strongly associated with psoriasis and other autoimmune issues. Okay, so they say an infection doesn't cause geographic tongue. When I look at people who have psoriasis and autoimmune conditions, I've never seen one that didn't have an underlying infection that went chronic in nature, which is where you get some of these immune system abnormalities. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of show you guys some of the research that I found in regards to some of these things. So let's just start with allergies. So this article is called Geographic Tongue, What a Dermatologist Should Know. So a specialist in the field when it comes to skin, and of course they'll still look at other conditions like the tongue. Okay, but allergies. Right? Studies have linked the presence of allergies with geographic tongue. Okay, so it's not necessarily that if you have, if you have geographic tongue, that you're gonna be more sensitive to food. I actually think it's the other way around, where if you have allergies and you're getting these immune system inflammatory reactions, that's actually gonna be something contributing to this. Okay, so it's been reported that patients with a personal or family history of asthma, eczema, allergic rhinitis, and higher levels of immunoglobulin E are more prone to have geographic tongue when compared to people without the mentioned diseases. Okay, so when I start thinking about things like asthma, okay, eczema, allergic rhinitis, all of those have a major inflammatory reaction and a major immune system component. Okay, so it may be food allergies, right? It may be gut infections, especially with eczema, different types of skin conditions. So eczema in specific is allergies, gut infections, different forms of toxicity there. Allergic rhinitis can be food allergies, it can be seasonal allergies, there can be some other things that kind of lead to that. But then immunoglobulin E. Okay, so IgE, and this is what I want you guys to think of when it comes to that. Some of you guys have probably heard of something called an IgE allergy. Okay, so when you think of IgE, picture that E as emergency. Think of that E as EpiPen, okay? These are anaphylactic type allergies where you may know someone where, say they eat a peanut or a shrimp or something and they light up in hives, they might, have some throat swelling, their face might get puffy, and they actually may need medication for that short term to save their life, okay? That's what that is. And people who have those IgE allergies, one of the major reasons why they have them is actually parasites. Okay, so parasites and parasitic infections are going to spike that IgE even in the blood. Okay, and you can see it on a stool test as well. And there's also some other things that can lead to some of those allergy formations like mold toxicity. Okay, so when I start thinking about these things, it's just telling me that the immune system is very active. Okay, and of course, that's no surprise to me when they say it's an inflammatory condition, because if your immune system is activated chronically, there's gonna be some inflammation, okay, every single time. And also on here, they talk about some of these people having something called seborrheic dermatitis. Okay, and basically that is like a very itchy type of infection condition of the skin, especially on your scalp. Okay, and they basically found that with geographic tongue, that's also very common. So you have some problems with your tongue. It's also very strongly connected with different forms of skin irritation and issues. Okay, so what else, right? We talked about hormonal changes. And there's actually a lot of research talking about oral contraceptives or birth control being predisposed people to geographic tongue, right? So oral contraceptive pills that cause hormonal fluctuations, aka hormonal imbalances, have been associated with geographic tongue, further indicating a possible hormonal role in this disorder. Okay, angiogenesis inhibitors have also been reported to induce geographic tongue possibly. So we know that the alterations in hormones can actually play a role. Now, is that probably everything? No, there's probably going to be some different bacterial overgrowths or certain underlying infections or allergies there, but they still play a role, okay? Angiogenesis inhibitors, angiogenesis just means formation of new blood vessels, okay? So that's a type of medication typically used with cancer or tumors or something to try to prevent the spread. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. But then you also have nutrient deficiencies. Okay, so vitamin D plays a very important role in your immune system with your hormones. Your B vitamins, especially B12, definitely not folic acid, but folate, B9, those are very important in even just processing and breaking down and eliminating hormone from your body. Okay, and then iron and zinc deficiencies, both very important for your immune system. Okay, so those all play a role in this too. So like everything we talk about, it's gonna be multifactorial. Right? And then one of the interesting things that this article found, and I just included it because sometimes I think it's a little funny, tobacco has been shown to play a protective role in the pathogenesis of geographic tongue. Okay, now I'm not going to recommend that you guys go start smoking cigarettes, okay, but a lot of people don't realize that tobacco has certain properties in it that can be beneficial for certain things, okay? It has a lot of B vitamins in it. Okay, a lot of people don't understand, even when you look at B vitamins, look up vitamin B3. Okay, so it's what's called a B complex vitamin. There's a lot of different names for it. And a couple of the names are nicotinic acid or nicotinamide. Okay, so basically when they were looking at these, they took nitric acid and nicotine and made a B vitamin, okay? So there are certain properties in it that are good, but then again, right, don't go start chewing tobacco and smoking. I'm definitely not saying that, do not hear me wrong. I'm just saying that there are certain things in it that can be beneficial, and that's what they look at here. Okay, so if you have geographic tongue, what can you do? Okay, where can you start, right? We have to find a starting point. We have to make an action plan moving forward. So one, get some food allergy testing done. That's one of the easiest things that you could do, where you can start identifying foods that are triggering underlying inflammation, okay? And everything that we try to do, we're just trying to decrease the amount of inflammation in your body. I mean, right, that's it. When you do that, your body's gonna start to heal. But maybe you are someone who has been taking, birth control or having some hormonal abnormalities. Get your hormones tested properly. Okay, if you have not had a Dutch test, you unfortunately have not had your hormones tested completely. Okay, there are certain hormone metabolites or breakdown products that you can only see doing that test. Okay, so it is very important, especially if you've been taking some form of hormone, just to make sure that your body's able to break it down and get it out of your body appropriately so that it's not gonna cause a lot of excess damage. Okay, so now, next thing, right? The hamburger tongue, okay? This is probably the one that we got questioned about the most, and I think it's probably because it's a lot more common than we realize. But there's a lot of overlap between the fissured tongue or the Hamburger tongue and geographic tongue. Okay, so they're very much connected, where if you have one, you're more likely to have the other. Okay, so it's again very common in patients with psoriasis. Okay, it's commonly associated with the geographic tongue, and therefore there are quite a few overlapping causes. Okay, however, some of the research does indicate that if you have the fissured tongue or the Hamburger tongue, it may be more chronic. Okay, and why that is it's due to swelling, right? So a lot of these people who have this, their tongues are a little bit larger than normal, and with all that chronic swelling, you start to form these little pits, right? So you guys can look at that image, especially on the left side, there's all the little cracks and cuts in there. On the left side, there's a really long one. Okay, and here is where we really start talking about some of that burning, okay, because this can cause burning of your tongue, and then you really need to start thinking that there is some type of infection, there's some type of microbial overgrowth. So especially when you get those pits, those fissures, if you have bacterial imbalances, they can nestle their way down into the crevices there, and they start, reproducing, growing. They start producing things that are irritating to that tissue. Absolutely, you can have burning tongue, okay? Very common, okay, especially with this. So you need to start thinking about underlying infections, okay? We also have to start, thinking about oral health, right? Oral health is very, very important. One of the most common things that is in probably almost every household that is gonna alter your oral health is mouthwash, okay? So especially if it's like an antiseptic, antibacterial, guys, you really don't want to use those, okay? They've even done research on, taking people who use things like Listerine or whatever the, common brands are of mouthwash that are antiseptic, antibacterial, antifungal, different things like that. They will actually lead to elevated blood pressure. Okay, your oral bacteria is very, very important, not only just to your mouth, but your overall health, because certain bacteria actually play a role in the production of nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is very important for the dilation of your blood vessels, right? So think of constriction, tight, dilation, wide. Okay, so tight, high blood pressure, wide, normal blood pressure, okay? And when you actually start taking these things that are antibacterial, antiseptic, you kill off some of these bacteria, and now you can't produce nitric oxide as you normally should. And it can actually lead to elevated blood pressure. So that's something that's very simple, right? That's an easy swap. And I'll show you guys a couple of my favorite things to use for oral health and oral hygiene that you guys can now start to use, okay? So that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about there. A lot of overlap with the geographic tongue as far as causes and even symptoms, right? It just visually appears a little bit different, okay? That's why it gets the name the Hamburger tongue, right? Now I want to talk about oral thrush, okay? This is probably what we get by far the most questions about, okay? And it is that white coating on the tongue. Okay, so oral thrush, what is that? It's a yeast overgrowth, okay? And I'm gonna talk about this one in a little bit more detail, but you guys can see that picture on the left. What do you guys notice about that woman's tongue besides the white? What do you guys notice? Put it in the comments over here, and I'm gonna start looking at them. Okay, so when we see that tongue, okay, sure, there is white all over it, right? And that is completely abnormal. That is a yeast overgrowth. But look at all the cracks. Look at all the fissures that are going on there, especially in the back left of her tongue. There's a really big fissure, okay? Right below the middle teeth there. And look what's in there. It's filled with white, chunky stuff, okay? You probably won't want to have cottage cheese after today either. I'm just forewarning you. So if you like cottage cheese, you plan on eating it, you may want to rewatch this, okay? But right, there is a fissure there, and it's filled with yeast. Like I said, these, when you have that fissured tongue, you can start getting these microbial imbalances that embed in there, and it's a lot harder to get them out. Okay, but then when we look at just the generic diagram there, you see the normal healthy tongue, right? It's pretty much pinkish red. It's got the normal grooves and patterns in it. And then you look at oral thrush on the right, which is also called candidiasis. It's the same thing, it's just a candida overgrowth. And you start noticing these big white streaks, these chunky little areas of white patches, okay? That is clearly abnormal, okay? So what really is this, right? What is oral thrush, or what is thrush in general? Okay, it's a fungal infection, right? It's a yeast overgrowth. A yeast is a fungus, and it can grow in a lot of different parts of your body, including your mouth, your throat. You could have vaginal yeast infections. Men can have urinary yeast infections, okay? With oral thrush, which is mainly what we're talking about today, you may develop white, raised, I'm gonna skip the cottage cheese in case you're eating it, on the tongue and cheeks, okay? Thrush can quickly become irritated and cause pain in the mouth and redness, okay? And again, probably more common to have pain with that fissuring, the Hamburger tongue, okay? Thrush can happen when there's an overgrowth of candida, a type of fungus, okay? And it can happen in your mouth, your throat, and again, a lot of different places, and we're gonna kind of walk you through that, okay? So what are some of the symptoms, right? How would you know if you have this? Well, first off, it usually develops pretty quickly. So you may just wake up one day and you notice that there's a slight whitish coating on your tongue, okay? That's not normal, and that is what would be called thrush, okay? So the most common sign of that is, it's very simple. You just have that creamy white, slightly raised lesions in your mouth, okay? Usually your tongue or inner cheeks. You may also have lesions on the roof of your mouth, your gums, tonsils, or back of your throat. So it can kind of spread around a little bit. Now, one of the things that can be a little bit confusing about thrush is that there is another tongue condition called leukoplakia that can slightly mimic this. And there's one very, very easy way to figure out what you have, okay? Try to scrape it off, okay? If you have a white patch and you can scrape it off, it's thrush. If you have a white patch, you can't scrape it off, it's leukoplakia, and that's a whole separate thing there, okay? So let's go back here. What are some of these symptoms, okay? So you can have redness or soreness inside of your mouth, especially the corners of your mouth. It's typically the first place where it's gonna start. You can have loss of taste, a cottony feeling in your mouth, and then especially if it starts traveling, I mentioned it can travel, back to your tonsils, the back of your throat, even into your esophagus. And then you can actually have pain or difficulty swallowing, which we've had complaints about that before. A lot of people actually will have that where it overgrows so much that they can't even eat, solid food anymore. Okay, a feeling that food gets stuck in your throat or mid-chest area, and fever, especially if it starts spreading around. Okay, so what are some of the things that are going to cause this? Okay, because you guys will hear us say all the time, candida is not bad. Okay, bacteria is not bad. Viruses are not bad, they're normal. Okay, candida, believe it or not, is a normal yeast. It's a normal fungus in your mouth, your throat, and your gut. Okay, it becomes problematic when there are imbalances. So I'm going to show you guys all the research that says it's opportunistic, meaning if it has the opportunity to overgrow, it will, right? But what if you don't allow that opportunity? What if you do some preventative things to make sure that you don't get that? I'm going to show you guys how to do that today, okay? So there we go. So what causes thrush, right? What's going to actually cause some of these imbalances, okay? So right away, they tell you that most people have small amounts of candida in their mouth, their digestive tract, and even on your skin, okay? Again, it's normal, okay? When illness, okay, so something that's going to stress out your immune system, mental stress itself, which, can definitely deplete your immune system and can alter hormones and stuff, or medications disturb the normal balance, then the fungus grows out of control and causes thrush. So again, when it has the opportunity, you have to give it the opportunity, but then it can. Okay, so I just looked up, and this is right on their website here. So medications that can make yeast flourish and can cause infection include corticosteroids, antibiotics, and looky again, birth control pills. Okay, so interesting. So I just want to hop into that again because it seems like birth control, right? Most people say, oh yeah, it'll balance your hormones. It doesn't. it actually inhibits your body's ability to cope with stress. It flatlines your hormones when they're supposed to be in a normal cyclic rhythm. Okay, and not only can it increase your risk of clotting and heart problems and stuff, well, it also will increase your risk for different problems with your tongue and different problems with fungus. Okay, so let's take a look at it, right? So birth control. So this study looked at the frequency of yeast infections, specifically the Candida albicans, which is going to be the most common fungus. There's a lot of different types of yeast. There's different types of Candida. Candida albicans is the most common one when it comes to oral health, okay? And they just looked at that in the presence in relation to birth control pills, okay? And here's what they found. The results of the study, of the present study, demonstrate that oral contraceptives containing estradiol, which when you're a cycling woman, that is the major form of estrogen in your body. It's going to be the one that if you go to the medical doctor, that's the one that they're likely going to test. Okay, it can lead to candida colonization in the oral cavity. Okay, so simply taking birth control can increase your risk of having a fungal overgrowth. Okay, and also that's just talking about the oral cavity. Okay, taking birth control can actually increase your risk of a vaginal yeast infection as well. Okay, because it's going to have an effect on hormones. Hormones still play a role with your immune system, believe it or not. Okay, they really do. They play massive roles in your brain, your whole body, okay? So they are signaling molecules. Now, this is one thing that I find slightly frustrating, okay? Just specifically looking at this article, I pulled this one up for a reason, but it's talking about corticosteroids, okay? In this article, you can read the title, so corticosteroids increase the risk of invasive fungal infections more than tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors in patients with inflammatory bowel disease. Okay, so what they did in this study, this is your typical medical literature, right? They're looking at a condition, so irritable bowel disease, so that's going to be things like ulcerative colitis, things like Crohn's disease, more autoimmune disorders of the gut, and they're comparing medications and they're saying, what are we noticing when we use corticosteroids versus when we use tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors? Okay, and in their conclusions, they say invasive fungal infections are more common than TB, which just means tuberculosis, one of the other conditions they were comparing it to in this study, in patients with irritable bowel disease. The risk of invasive fungal infections with corticosteroids is more than double of that of the anti-TNFs. This is what they concluded. Minimizing corticosteroid use in IBD patients may decrease their risk of fungal infections. Okay, so why is this slightly frustrating? I see a lot of patients who have digestive issues, especially IBS, IBD. Do you want to know what the first thing every single one of them is typically given? A corticosteroid. Okay, and then when we run tests, and I'll show you guys the test of one of my patients, they have a lot of fungal infections. I'll show you guys one of my patients, multiple yeast overgrowths, multiple bacterial overgrowths, okay? And the research is saying that this might not be the best option, okay? I'm not saying it's never necessary. I'm just saying it seems to be a very common thing that they say, hey, just take some prednisone for a few weeks, everything will be better, right? And it may be. That may be true, okay? But you can't take it a long time because guess what? It's going to suppress your immune system even more, leading you more susceptible to different types of overgrowths, not just yeast, right? It could be any even viral infections and stuff, okay? So last but not least, we have just a general overview here for you guys of candidiasis, right? So yeast overgrowths, yeast infections, okay? And I want to touch specifically on the portion of antibiotics, but they do a really good job basically summarizing what I've just been talking about here, okay? So candidiasis is an opportunistic infection. Okay, let me say that again. Candida overgrowth is an opportunistic infection. Again, candida is not bad. It has to have the opportunity to overgrow. Okay, Candida albicans is present in healthy persons, colonizing the oropharyngeal, esophageal, and gastrointestinal mucosa. So it is normal. And it's actually, believe it or not, it's important to have it. Okay, it functions in the normal balance of our system. However, candida can cause mucosal candidiasis in these areas where they usually are present in what? An immunocompromised host, someone with a weak immune system or an imbalanced immune system. So it's very common in patients who have leukemia or lymphoma, so 2 different types of cancer, because of their consumption of what? Corticosteroids and cytotoxic drugs. Their immunity is gone. It's compromised, and that leads to opportunistic infections. Okay, and here we go about antibiotics. Antibiotic usage is commonly associated with candidiasis. Okay, cancer, cytotoxic chemotherapy may result in fungemia, so fungus in your blood caused by Candida albicans, which develops from fungal translocation through compromised mucosal barriers. Okay, you guys have heard Dr. Patrick talk about mucosal barriers all the time. It is a very, very overlooked aspect of our immune system. So think of it like your skin, right? This is a barrier. Okay, it is protecting the inside of my body. You have mucosal barriers in your sinuses. Okay, imagine you are breathing air through your nose. Okay, and there's going to be pathogens, there's going to be viruses, bacteria, there could be mold, there could be tons of different toxic fumes. Those mucosal barriers are there to protect you. Your immune system lives there. It's important to take care of them, and they exist in your oral cavity all the way down through your intestinal tract. It's very, very important, and most people don't know how to take care of them. Okay, so if they're compromised, it's going to leave you more susceptible to a lot of different things. Okay, but here we go. Fungal commensals in the upper and lower GI tract can transform into opportunistic pathogens due to changes in the endogenous bacterial population size or composition, as well as changes in the what? In the host's environment. Right? So all this is saying is that, hey, this is normal. This is a normal thing in the body, but if it has the opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's just mental stress. It doesn't matter if it's just some, different bacterial imbalances, or if it's the use of a medication or something. If it has the opportunity to continue to grow, it's going to grow. Okay? They want to survive. Okay? And it's also very, very common in people with HIV. Okay, so the very last sentence of this, it just says more than 90% of patients with HIV present with Candida overgrowth. Why would that be? Well, HIV treatment, they have to basically turn off the immune system. Okay, people don't die of HIV. They die with HIV from opportunistic infections because their immune system is just shut off. Okay, that's why we're always talking about how can you build your immune system. Okay, it's super important to take care of your immune system and to know how to do that. Okay, so here's the labs of the patient I was talking about. Okay, so you guys take a look at this. Okay, so on the top there, that bacteriology section, ignore that. Those are probiotics. Okay, but look at the bottom 2, additional bacteria and mycology. So mycology, think fungus, think yeast. Okay, so this is someone who had a history of a lot of ear infections growing up and took a lot of different forms of antibiotics multiple times in their childhood. Okay, they grew up in, a house that probably they thought had some water damage, may have had some mold, different things like that. They weren't too sure what was going on. Okay, and they started getting oral thrush. They had vaginal yeast infections, and I was just like, okay, there has to be some major immune system stress. There's got to be certain imbalances, and sure enough, 4 bacterial overgrowths and 2 fungal overgrowths. And look at that first one right under the mycology, Candida albicans. It's right there. It's in their gut too. And look at that. It's in the yellow. I don't have the legend there, but you'll see green means it's non-pathogenic. Okay, it's still a problem. It's still an immune system stress. It's still something that has to be taken care of. But when it goes in that yellow and becomes potentially pathogenic, well, now it has grown to an amount where it can cause some pretty devastating health consequences. Okay, so you definitely have to get these things taken care of. And how would you know that you have this? You have to get tested. Okay, otherwise we're just guessing at what's going on. And you guys know that we don't guess, we test. Okay, that's why it's extremely important to have these done. This woman, she was told by so many doctors that basically there was nothing they could do, stay hydrated, drink water. She was actually one of those people where it was so bad in her mouth, she was having a hard time swallowing food. Okay, she was trying to get some IVs to stay hydrated because that's all her doctors were telling her to do was stay hydrated. Okay, she thought this test was like a miracle. She's like, oh my gosh, I knew it. I knew something was wrong in my body. If you have a hunch that something's going on, get it looked at, okay? Can't explain it, but the amount of times people are right about what's going on with their health is slightly surprising sometimes, okay? But pretty cool, okay? So, right, say you have candida. What can you do, right? How do you kick it, okay? How do you get rid of it, okay? So here's a list of some things that I made. Now, disclosure, this is not gonna work for everyone. You have to get tested. Okay, you have to. It's by far the most important part because we're not just focusing on candida, we're focusing on your whole overall environment. Okay, so I cannot emphasize enough the importance of testing, but some basic things, okay? Aloe vera juice. Aloe is probably one of the greatest plants to ever exist, okay, because there are so many different uses for it. It will help your body detoxify certain things. It helps support your mucosal barrier. It helps hydrate tissue. You guys have all probably had a sunburn and you put it on your skin. And guess what? It feels great, okay? It cools down the inflammatory response, hydrates that tissue so well. Okay, coconut oil. Another one that's gonna be safe for so many people unless you have an allergy for it. But coconut oil contains two things. I didn't put the second thing on there, but first one is lauric acid. Okay, that's one of the major constituents in there, and then the other one is caprylic acid. Okay, I just forgot to put that one in there, so I apologize, but you can look it up. Caprylic acid, and both of them have activity against fungus. Okay, so that's why if you look more, I'm sure, you know, if you guys are watching us, you guys by now, you probably aren't using Listerine, you're probably doing rinses and aloe and stuff. You can put aloe in your mouth. Okay, and you can do an aloe rinse, and it's great for your oral health. You can do a coconut pull. Okay, so like an oil pulling, it's good for your teeth. Why is it good for your teeth? Because it's good for the bacteria in there. It's good for that normal balance due to that lauric and caprylic acid. Okay, if you have candida in the gut, something that I will use every once in a while is called black walnut. Why? Well, one of the major constituents in that is something called juglone. Okay, and there's a lot of research in there where they even will compare it to certain antifungal medications because it has very potent antifungal effects. So for instance, that lady that I showed you guys where she had a pretty severe candida infection, right, and overgrowth, guess what she got? She got a little bit of black walnut, okay? But also another great one that Dr. Patrick's basically done episodes on here is Oregon grape. It's very well known for its cardiovascular benefits and arterial health due to berberine and how that will, you know, affect your blood sugar and stuff. But berberine's also very antimicrobial. That's why you'll notice a lot of really good benefits for your digestive health. It actually stimulates your digestive processes. Last week, Dr. Patrick talked all about oregano oil and specifically that carvacrol, okay, for biofilms, okay? You can still have biofilms with yeast overgrowth and stuff like that too, okay? So that can be something, and that carvacrol, or I can barely say it, that carvacrol can actually be antifungal as well, okay? And then another thing that I thought was awesome is just garlic. Okay, and garlic, people will, you know, tout garlic for its benefits, garlic oil, just eating garlic. And one of the cool properties in that is something called allicin. Okay, and there's a lot of research. It doesn't necessarily say, you know, oh, this is gonna kill candida or different things, but there's a lot of research that it is preventative of candida overgrowth. Okay, so if you want some preventative measures, do a little aloe, do some coconut rinsing, and eat some garlic, right? Assuming you're not allergic to it or anything like that, but have some, it's great. There's so many different benefits to it, but at the same time, we have to look at the bigger picture, okay? I would never tell anyone, if you have candida, go get all these things and start taking all these things, because guess what? It might not work. There is a bigger picture here, and you have to look at the body as a whole. We never isolate on certain areas. So here is the biggest thing I can tell you today, okay? There's either two things. You're toxic or you're deficient, okay? So let's talk about toxicity, right? Certain medications. Medications are toxic, okay? Antibiotics, corticosteroids, birth control. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't necessary at times. They are. But at the same time, even though they're necessary, still toxic, okay? And especially antibiotics, corticosteroids, birth control, they will alter some of these microbial functions. They'll alter your immune system function, leaving you susceptible to more infections, okay? But not only medications, right? One of the biggest toxic burdens we have besides that is just food, right? If you're eating inflammatory foods and you're altering the normal microbial balance in your body, no doubt so many people have GI issues, gas, bloating, bouts of diarrhea and constipation. The amount of people who aren't having a bowel movement at least once a day is astronomical. Some people don't go, they maybe go once or twice a week. Okay, so guess what? You're still eating every day. Now you have all this toxicity building up in your body, and we wonder why we're sick. We wonder why we don't feel good. Okay, this is why we have to get rid of the toxicity. Okay, and also like chemicals, right? We talked about something as simple as mouthwash could actually be devastating to your overall health. Can lead to microbial imbalances, especially in your oral health, your oral microbiome. Can also contribute to things like high blood pressure, which are going to be linked to arterial disease, cardiovascular disease. Okay, who would ever connect that to mouthwash? Okay, so anything that's inflammatory, right? We're always trying to decrease that burden as much as possible, but then just as important, why we hound glandulars all the time, you have to be sufficient in nutrients. So if you're having some of these problems, you can also be deficient, right? We looked at the Geographic Tongue. You can just be deficient in some B vitamins, some vitamin D, some zinc, some iron. So you have to make sure you're getting proper nutrients. Why? Because you can also be immune deficient. Your immune system cells require certain nutrients to build, to reproduce. Okay, if they don't have those, guess what? You start becoming immune deficient, you leave your body susceptible to different types of infections. It doesn't matter if it's a yeast infection, bacterial, viral, whatever it may be, your environment is now set up in a way that allows for some of these things to flourish, right? Think of people who grow up, they get chicken pox and say, oh, yep, now you never get it again, unless you're immune deficient and then it resurfaces as shingles. Okay, your immune system is deficient. Okay, so you're either toxic or you're deficient. So what do we want to do? We want to get rid of the toxicity and we want to provide our body sufficiency. Okay, so what can you do? Okay, one, like I mentioned, get your testing done. If you are having some of these problems, you need to get testing. I don't care where you start. I would recommend working with a Wellness Way doctor. We have offices all over the country. We do remote care as well. So call a clinic and get some testing done. Okay, but step two, support your oral health, right? So ditch the antiseptic, antibacterial mouthwash. You don't want that, and start doing some other things like birch bark xylitol. Okay, that actually supports some of your oral bacteria. It's protective against cavities. Okay, a lot of people think that sugar causes cavities, and that's not actually necessarily true. Sugar will feed certain bacteria that make acid, and now you get a lot of acidity in your oral cavity, which leads to degradation of some of that enamel in your teeth. Okay, birch bark xylitol is a sugar substitute, if you want to call it that, and it's going to have actual benefits at repopulating some of that bacteria. Then you can also do some aloe. You can do some coconut oil with the lauric and caprylic acid in there. Okay, you can actually get like more natural mouthwashes that will have a lot of these things built in there. It's fantastic. You just do a little rinse and you're supporting your overall health, not just your oral health. Okay, 3, support your immune system. Okay, so vitamin D, right? That's a very common deficiency, especially where I'm at here in Wisconsin. Even in the summer, sometimes people just don't get in the sun, okay? And especially in the winter, we can't even get adequate amounts of vitamin D here. However, I have patients in Florida, and they got sun pretty much year round. I've seen some of the lowest vitamin D levels from super sunny areas, okay? So you have to get checked out and you have to figure out why that's happening. Okay, but also medicinal mushrooms, right? Those are by far some of my favorite things in the world. Okay, they have so many different benefits. There's so many different ones. And little tidbit as far as oral health goes, I was kind of curious. I'm like, what could I talk about? What medicinal mushroom is going to have some benefits to your oral health? And that would be shiitake. Okay, so you have to physically eat it, right? So a capsule is not going to do exactly the same thing, but if you get some shiitake mushroom and you just consume some of it on a routine basis, it actually is anti-plaquing and anti-biofilm. Okay, so it's very protective of your oral health, which is really cool. And of course, with shiitake, you'll get some other immune system benefits and stuff as well. And simply just get enough nutrients. Okay, you guys wonder why we are always talking about glandulars. We're, constantly, today we're doing kava, but we have given away thousands and thousands of dollars worth of glandulars because they provide nutrient density. Okay, they have liver, and then depending on whatever glandular it is, there's going to be different types of organ meats which have different nutrient profiles. But what do they all do? What do they all have in common? Well, they all have liver because it's the most nutrient dense food, but they all have different sources of B vitamins, of iron, of fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A. Okay, and these are all very important for your body. So you just need to be sufficient. Okay, so avoid toxicity, provide your body sufficiency, start working on some of the oral health aspects of things, and watch the changes that are made. Okay, then, or first off, you should get tested, but then, right, get some testing. If you're not noticing changes, get testing, because then you have to be a lot more specific. You have to look at the overall garden, right, and not just try to pull out some of the weeds. Sometimes if you just try to pull a weed, it's gonna grow back. Okay, so you got to take care of the whole garden. Okay, so I hope that really helps you guys out this morning. I hope that answers a lot of those questions about some of the different conditions with the tongue, gives you guys some action steps that you can literally start today. A lot of these you can get at the grocery store. Okay, and those are always my favorite things because I don't know if you guys know this, but I don't really like taking supplements because they taste like crap. And I know that you guys don't like the supplements because you always tell me, hey, these taste like crap. I say, I know. Okay, so if we can start doing some of these things first, you may not have to take supplements, right? Supplements are there as needed based on your labs for certain problems. So if you do have some of these major overgrowths and stuff, absolutely, you're probably gonna wanna get some testing done. You're gonna need some of these things, but you can do a lot with just coconut oil, with just xylitol and aloe. You can make some really significant changes in your life, and I want you guys to know these things so you can start applying it, okay? But that being said, I am going to swing this back over to Dr. Lucas and Aaron, and we will see which one of you guys have been paying attention today and being active with them over there. So let's hop over to them.
Oh, appreciate that there, Dr. Bryce. Aaron, do you want to take it off or shall I?
Sure. There has been so much interaction. Like, who knew the tongue? Well, I didn't know. I actually was kind of shocked this week when we said this is what we were going to talk about. I was like, all right, well, you too. That'll be fun. So here we are. But great interaction, a lot of people, great feedback, and some tips on a great mouthwash alternative.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of great recipes popping up in the chat.
Super cool. So, kava. But who doesn't love kava? I mean, not maybe the liquid, but the capsules, right? So here we go. Shannon Bali, Jacqueline Bassett, Barbara Ball, Jean M., Heidi Knuckles, Colette Brooks, Kelly Jo Christensen, and Sherry W. Thank you for all your interaction and joining the community here. Make sure that you email giveaways at thewellnessway.com, and Allie will get you set up and get that kava shipped out to you.
Yeah. Well, on the Facebook side of things, it has been a great day. Love all the interaction. Mary Kay Scheller and Cassie Nelson Conley, thank you for being some of those first people to say good morning. Sherry Cox Gilliand, I understand your daughter's going off to college. You're gonna need that kava. Shelly Mottershead, Cindy May, appreciate you saying how much you've been learning. Amy Reinsbach, Jessica Radschlag, and Dan D. You are all winners of kava. Please be sure to email giveaways at thewellnessway.com, and we'll make sure to get that over to you. Dr. Bryce, any final words?
Yeah, awesome. Well, congratulations, you guys. Kava is absolutely one of the best stress-supporting herbs out there, so hopefully that helps you guys out. But yeah, I love that you guys are always so interactive in that chat. It's honestly always so much fun to just kind of sit there, get to know you guys, answer some of your questions, and I will tell you guys who watch the show all the time, you guys are so far ahead of the game, right? You guys are investing into your health here on a Saturday morning. We appreciate that. That's why it's so easy for us to show up here every weekend and just pour into you guys. And that being said, make sure you guys kind of toss some of those recipes our ways, because we can always use more resources, and sometimes you guys have some great ideas, and we always appreciate when you guys share that with us. So if you guys think you have a really good recipe for like a mouthwash or something like that, post it and tag us in it. We would absolutely love to kind of highlight some of that stuff. So that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I believe Dr. Patrick will be back next week for the show. So you guys will be seeing him soon, and we will talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend. Thank you guys for watching.
For the unedited, full-length, unapologetic content, go to our website to watch ADP shows. Hit that subscribe button and join our community for the most amazing content like this every day.